last live wasn't too lively. So we're going to try this again today, tonight, right now, and we'll see how long it lasts. It's already past midnight, so if this doesn't go over well, I have no problem getting off sooner. I do have some long form videos I plan on doing, so be on the lookout for that. Um, but I'm going to get straight into it, guys. Um, you guys, if you haven't seen the topic, the headline, the headline is "Here we go again with the Hitler comparisons," and we know to whom we're referring. They are again saying that Donald Trump admires Hitler and calling him a fascist and a would-be dictator, saying that if Kamala isn't elected, then he's going to turn himself into a dictator. This works on stupid people, but people who don't have short-term amnesia well, remember the Democrats have been have been using the same playbook for literally the last 24 years, the last 25 years. George W. Bush was compared to Hitler, both in 2000 and 2004. Because of Mitt Romney's strong uh, conservative leanings, he was given Nazi comparisons. The only one they didn't compare was McCain. Thank goodness, because he's a naval war hero. I think Democrats held back on their vitriol, as did Barack Obama. Like they've in the past 25 years, they gave a quite a bit of unusual candor to McCain, although there was a, a political action committee that tried to shit on McCain's military record. Again, that was a independent PAC, super PAC that did that, so I'm not going to count that. But at least they didn't make the obvious Nazi comparison. But again, this little routine of comparing every Republican candidate to a fascist, a Nazi sympathizer, or an admirer of Hitler has been going on for the last 25 years. And people who have been politically savvy have seen it play out as well. This is why a lot of people who are politically informed are apathetic about politics. This is why I'm apathetic. This is why I'm an independent. And guys, I will never tell anyone how they should vote, but I would say this. It would behoove a lot of people to start reger- registering as independents instead of registering for either the two major political parties because they play the same fucking games. And the Democrats have gotten on my last nerves with this. They're now, they're comparing Trump to Hitler and saying he would be a dictator and a fascist. He admires authoritarian leaders, yada, yada, yada. But they've only started doing so now in the last legs of the race. Early voting started this week. Dude, get the fuck off my channel. No one gives a fuck what you think. You're a fucking foreigner. You're not even American. Get the fuck off my channel. Schmuck. Yeah, and I don't want to hear something from some fucking camel dick sucker. Like you have no you have no bearings on on American politics. So if you don't know anything about American politics, don't even bother with this because you don't know the fuck we're talking about here. I don't care, guys. I don't care. Again, I'm not your average YouTuber. I will not be a sycophant to a bunch of idiots. If you want that, find another channel. if you are a or if you are a foreign-born person, you're not American. You're not gonna know anything about American politics. So please stay the fuck out of it. We don't care what you think over in your little fucktard country. And I mean that with all sincerity. I don't give a fuck about you or your country. Stay the fuck over there. You have nothing to deal with in our politics. Shut up. I can't even pronounce this dude's fucking username. Fucking retard. Anyway, yeah, I said the R word. I don't care. He's a retard. So, as a lot of people are on social media. Most of you need mental health uh, therapy. So anyway, as we saw, the polls are slipping for Kamala. And if that's not how you pronounce her name, I really don't give a shit. But we're in the last leg of the race. Appreciate it, Martin. I'm not particularly religious myself, but you know, to each his own. But in any case, as we're in the last leg of the presidential race, and as the polls have slipped from Kamala, now they have to evoke the whole Hitler thing. They did this in 2016, so again, guys, they're using the same playbook they've been running since 1999. People forget all the comparisons they were giving George W. Bush to Hitler back in 1999, 2000, and then during his reelection in 2004. They People forget that because now they show George Bush as a good guy in legacy media because he's all cozy with the Obamas. But us who were college students in the early 2000s, a lot of us remember how much vitriol there was for W. Bush back then. He he was compared to the Nazis and all that, especially during his reelection again when he was running against John Kerry. And you know, they were saying, talking about how evil, the Department of Homeland Security was, the Patriot Act. I mean, they even talked about the Patriot Act in the Dark Knight trilogy. If you guys don't remember, the Harvey Dent Act in the Dark Knight Rises was supposed to be emblematic of the effects of the Patriot Act. Yes. And the Joker going about terrorizing Gotham was supposed to be emblematic of the the fear of terrorism going on in the early 2000s. Okay. So anyway, Bush Jr. was often compared to a Nazi back then. But again, you wouldn't know that now because legacy media likes him, so they don't talk ill of him anymore. But he was not well liked during his time. And the way Jon Stewart skewers Trump now is the same way he used to skewer George W. Bush back in the early 2000s. And to be honest, I used to love it because I thought it was funny. Jon Stewart had the funniest, uh, the, the funniest parody of George W. Bush. He would hunch his shoulders like, it used to be, I'm the decider. It used to be hilarious. I'm not going to lie. But again, since 1999, every Republican candidate except for McCain was compared to a Nazi or claimed to be a sympathizer with Hitler. This is why legacy media is at its lowest level of trust amongst the general public right now, because it is untrustworthy. This is why, to be politically informed, you need to take information from a bevy of different sources to be politically informed on both sides, on both political sides. No matter what side politically you fall on, you should be you should be gathering information from both sides, because both sides will have information that the other side won't show you. Martin says every president since 1992 are all on the same team: Bush, the Clintons, Obama, Biden, and probably Trump too. All right, get your little narrow tard ass off of here. I'm joking. What's up, Nardo? He said, "Why y'all tapping about tapping?" Because that's the topic. Maybe before you click on the live stream, you should look at the topic, my friend. It clearly says, here we go again with the Hitler comparisons. So that's why we're talking about politics, because the whole topic is about politics. I don't honestly, and I'm not trying to roast you, but I don't get why some of you guys come onto fucking live streams and you don't understand, and you don't even look at the heading before you click on it to see what it's actually about. I have a topic, and that is with what I stick. That is to what I stick. Sorry, is the topic. Unless I do once a week, I have a thing called Ask Me Anything. Then it's whatever. It's random. But when I have a topic, that's what I'm talking about. That specific topic. If anyone wants to talk about anything outside of my given topic, they can drop a super chat, and I'll answer any question in a super chat format. But other than the super chat format, I only talk about whatever I'm uh, given for my topic today. All right. So you're new, so just letting you know. But again, anytime I jump in a live stream myself, I'm only going into that live stream because it's already a topic of which I'm interested. So anyway, getting back to the topic. So the reason I'm talking about this Naruto is for the past 2 days, there's been this fear mongering amongst people on the political left, the Democrats, stuff like that. If you're American, if you're not American, you probably don't know what I'm talking about. But in America, the last few days of the beginning of this week, there's been fear mongering amongst Democrats and people of the political left that Trump is a fascist, that he's a Nazi sympathizer, and that he admires Hitler, and that given the opportunity, if he's reelected, that he would reorganize the military to make them all completely loyal to him and not the US Constitution. Again, this is the same playbook Hillary did back in 2016. And again, like her, this was when the polls started to slip and showed that she was in a dead heat race against Trump. Because as we remember, she won the popular vote, but she still lost the electoral vote to him. And that's kind of her fault. She didn't do her due diligence in the swing states that she needed to win. That's number one. And number two, a lot of white women didn't vote for her. So again, whose fault is that? But no one's going to blame white women for not voting for her. But they'll try to blame black men right now if Trump wins, even though black people only make up 12% of the population. And then if you divide that into men, that's not adult, like men of voting age. That's not a lot of people. So if Kamala loses, that's her fault. And again, the reason I'm bringing this up is because there's a famous internet law called Godwin's law. Godwin law pretty much states that the longer an internet debate goes on, the likelier that someone is going to eventually evoke Nazis or Hitler to the person with whom they disagree. And this is what the Democrats have done. Like I said, since 1999, they've run the same playbook against their political opponents, basically calling them, basically saying to anyone who aligns themselves with the right, whether they're conservative, independent, libertarian, Republican, ultra conservative, or on the fringe right, they're all fascists. They're all Nazis. They're all white supremacists. And it's just not factual. But people on the left will believe that, and they will virtual signal by repeating these same lies. You know, in logic, no matter how many times you repeat a false claim, a false assertion, it will remain false. I appreciate it, Martin. He says either way, God bless you, sir. Thank you. I appreciate it. Look, even though I'm not religious, I can take a if I can I can understand when someone sends you a blessing, they mean well. Unlike Kamala, who when someone said, and again, this is coming from an atheist. So when this is coming from an atheist, this is bad, right? But again, I'm an atheist, but when someone in her at her rally said Jesus is king and she told that person you're at the wrong rally, like if I was her if I was her campaign manager, I would have yeah, mm, I would have cut myself. like, why would you say that to someone? Like, that is crazy. You told him like, oh, you're at the wrong rally. You need to be at the rally a few streets down or something, whatever she said. Like, that's crazy. Like, even if she's not religious, which she probably isn't, she could have said, thank you. She could have said, thank you. We love everyone here or something like that. But to alienate that person, that was crazy. Like, this wasn't a heckler. Well, even if it was a heckler, they weren't saying anything pejorative. So I will never, if someone sends me a blessing, although I'm not religious, I would never diss them for it like she did. Like, you dissed this person before the entire country and made herself look bad as a result. That's crazy. Like, this is why she lost her campaign back in 2020. She's horrible at this. And let's be honest, if she wasn't the VP, she wouldn't have got picked if they had done a if they had did a primary as they should have done when Biden stepped down. She wouldn't have won that primary. She wouldn't, even though she's the VP. She's horrible at campaigning. She's horrible at it. You said she's a baddie. Are we both referring to Kamala Harris? First of all, she's 60, so she doesn't look good to me. And even if you take her age away, like I've seen her pictures of her when she was in her 30s and in her 20s, like at Howard University. She was never cute to me. Like even in her young ages, like even when she was younger, I never thought she was cute. And I like Indian women, but she was to each their own. But she was never cute to me. I'm sorry. Hundo says, "What do you want to accomplish with YouTube Live?" What do you mean? What I want to accomplish? The point of the YouTube Live is to have a direct correspondence with the audience, with people watching. That's the purpose of YouTube Live, and it expands my audience. Honda Civic. Are you referring to his username? It's Hundo, not Honda Civic. I don't know. All right, Nardo, yeah. getting a little weird here, talking about she sends you nudes. Anyway, getting back to the subject. So again, the fact that the Democrats keep evoking Godwin's law, which is a running joke on the internet for the past 20 plus years, which is the longer internet debate goes on, the the, the more likely that Nazis or Hitler will will be evoked in that conversation towards the person they disagree with. This is what Democrats do. And like I said, it's a run-in playbook. Like I said, they're comfy with George W. Bush now, but to hear them tell it 24 years ago, he was like the devil. Like they hated that man because he had the audacity to run against Gore, and they had pretty much assumed Al Gore would be the like everyone on the left just assumed Al Gore was going to win the presidency. It was almost a foregone conclusion. Like it was almost a foregone conclusion that he was going to become the president back in 2020. So I mean, sorry, in 2000. Um, so much so that even the Simpsons ran a gag on on their series back years ago when they showed like uh Clinton still in office and Gore like basically measuring the basically measuring the curtains and the drapes to see what he was going to put in there when he steps into the Oval Office, and they was like, "You already," it was like, "You already measuring for what you for how you want the Oval Office to be decorated like," and he just nodded and started grinning. It was funny, but yeah, it was like it was almost a foregone conclusion at that time that he was going to win. Same thing with Hillary. Back in 2008, she just knew she had it in the bag. And so when Obama stepped onto the scene and ran against her, she saw it as a slap in the face that that another prominent Democrat could steal her thunder away from her. Because just like Gore, this bitch thought she basically inherited the office. Like she and Gore just kind of saw the election as just a preliminary step to their inevitable election, and they were both wrong. They were both wrong. Gore did nothing to court black voters. He just assumed that he had them just because most black voters vote Democrat. This is the same, and this is why they're so mad at black people, particularly black men right now, is because they see their numbers slipping. They see a lot of them either supporting Trump or refusing to vote. And even still, overwhelming majority are still going to vote Democrat, vote for Kamala. Like it's still going to be at least 80%, if not more, black people vote for her. But it's not going to be the same numbers as everyone else had. Biden had more voting for him. Hillary had more voting for her. Obama definitely had the most voting for any any candidate since Bill Clinton. Like I think Obama had like 90 something percent. Like he pretty much had the entire black vote on lock. Like he had over 90% uh, black people vote for him. So the fact that she can't command that has made people spicy. So you got Obama and Spike Lee going out here chastising black men for not choosing that bitch. First of all, she's not even black. And two, even if she were, a lot of savvy black voters are not voting just based on skin color and political identity, like on identity politics anymore. They want something more for their vote, as they should. Um, but again, like I said, I want to. If people have never heard of this, and again, this in, this informal law, it's a more of a law of communication. It's not like a scientific law per se, but this law-like observation of online communication has been around again since the early days of the internet, probably since the late 90s, early 2000s. Again, it's called Godwin's Law, which in summary states that the longer an internet debate goes on, the more likely that not that Nazis or Hitler will be a vote to show disagreement with someone. And as I put on my personal Facebook page, which is not connected to this, my professional Facebook page is connected to this, not my personal. But on my personal Facebook page, I said when your political party runs afoul of Godwin's law in every presidential election, you've lost credibility. And that's what they keep doing. Like, they, every time they get desperate, every time they start losing in the polls, they have to demonize the opposition. Like, don't get me wrong, both political parties demonize each other, but it is of particular poor taste on the left that they smear every Republican candidate as being a fascist or aligned with Nazis and Hitler. This is something uniquely done on the left with Democrats. Okay, the right has their bullshit too, but that's a topic for a different day. We're gonna stay focused here. Um, it if this doesn't make you politically apathetic, I don't know what does, what will, because again, the fact of the matter is both parties, um, both parties kind of create ire amongst their constituents on both sides. They make them, they put both, they put the members of both parties at loggerheads against each other, and the mudslinging and all this sort of stuff is reinforced through legacy media. Again, this is why people don't trust mainstream media much right now. People are tired of it. They are just tired of it. They don't like the management of the news through corporate and government tinkering. Okay. And the fact of the matter is, no matter how much these people act like they are mortal enemies of each other during these elections, in the background, in the background, these folks, whether on the left or the right, they all went to the same elite universities. They all go to the same events. They live in the same communities, and they send their kids to the same schools. That's the fact of the matter. They want they want the electorate to, and then these are the same folks who claim that politics has gotten hyper partisan and that we need to calm shit down. But they stoke the very flames that they claim to be against. They stoke the very flames that they claim to be against, which can lead to civil unrest because of the irresponsibility of our mainstream media. Because don't get me wrong, candidates have thrown mud at each other since the beginning of the American colonies. If you don't believe me, you can fact check me on that. You can look back all the way at the Federalist Papers coming out in the late 1700s, early 1800s, and these people used to go at each other pretty hard. Two guys who were good friends before they ran against each other, John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, became like mortal enemies after campaigning against each other when Thomas Jefferson ran against John Adams during his when he ran for re-election. So that John Adams only became a one-term president, and Thomas Jefferson took it from him, and then ran. Then John Adams ran against him again during Thomas Jefferson re-election, but Thomas Jefferson won his re-election. and they were like enemies, like literal, like this, like unlike the candidates today, like they were literally enemies at that point. Like the stuff they said against each other in the public, and it wasn't until like on their deathbeds that both of them made amends to each other. So when people say that politics has never been so bad, that's not true. Like I said, since the beginning of the American colonies, politics has been very uh, fiery. However, the difference is when it came to like the media, which back then was only the printed press, but now we have online media, TV, and print. Um, so yeah, I mean, so we have TV, print, and digital, right? And we have these 24-hour news cycles, so they can just endlessly stoke fiery rhetoric against each other, and people. And the bad thing is that the general elected buys into this bullshit when in the background most of these candidates don't really, most of the time, don't hate each other. Now some of them really do dislike Trump. Like so many of them generally dislike Trump, and which is funny because he's given money to the campaigns of people both on the Democratic side and the Republican side. But both many people hate him not because he's mentally ill, not because they think he's a fascist, but for similar reasons they hate Bernie, which is he's a bit of an iconoclast. And being that he's a billionaire, he's not beholden to the donor class like these other candidates are. Bernie wasn't beholden to the donor class either because he he made all his money through grassroots, and they hated the fact that he was so successful at grassroots campaigning because all the young people loved Bernie. I was a Bernie supporter, and if he ran, I would have still have been. But in any case, um, hold on, let me change the chat filter by the way to all messages, so I'm not getting all of mine. All right. I'm gonna get to your question in a minute, Hundo. I just saw it. I'm sorry. I had to change my chat filter so I could see it. Um, but yeah, again, they will stir up this fiery rhetoric against each other during election season, during these election cycles. Sometimes they really do dislike each other, but even if they do, it's usually not as bad as the way they put it out there. And that these super PACs put out, the super PACs are the worst because even they're not directly tied to these candidates' campaigns, so they can they can do the dirty work that the candidates can't do themselves. And let's be honest, most of the candidates don't will tacitly support some of the stuff these super PACs put out, even if they're not responsible for it. Now, if they are responsible for it, then that can get into some malfeasance with election law and all that sort of stuff. But setting that aside, again, they have the general electorate at loggerheads against each other. But again, I want you guys to remember at the end of the day, these Republicans, these Democrats, even the libertarians, all of them all of them have attended the same elite universities. They go to the same they often go to the same events and private organizations. They often live in the same communities, and they often send their kids to the same schools. They make up an oligarchy. I don't care whether they're on the right or the left, Democrat or Republican. These folks form an oligarchy, but they want you guys to fight it out. That's all I have to say about that. Anyway, let me get to Hondo's question. Hondo says, "Do you think Trump is a racist?" Um, Possibly, but here's the thing: most most old white people have some racist beliefs. He's 79 years old. I You show me a white person over the age of 65 that doesn't harbor some racist beliefs, and I can show you some swampland in Florida to buy. However, there's a difference between ov- overt racism and the type of racism by people who either don't think they're racist or they try to hide it. And this was something Malcolm X talked about 60 years ago. He said I would prefer the southern redneck over the liberal fox. He said with the racist he said with the southern redneck, you know they're racist and and they don't hide it and you know how to deal with it. He said, but with the liberal fox, they pretend that they're actually on your side, but they're actually racist and they will hurt you and you won't see it coming because they're pretending they're on your side. So he said, if I had to choose between the racism of the liberal fox or the racism of the rednecks of the southern redneck, he said I would choose the southern redneck. Now, obviously, Trump isn't a southern redneck, but the point remains that even if Trump is a racist, his racism wasn't manifest in his policies to black people. And I'm only referring to black people because at this point, black people need to start looking out for themselves and stop being concerned about other minority groups. We're always concerned about other minority groups, and these other minority groups don't give a shit about us. We we get caught up in helping Latinos. I love Latinos. Some of my family are Latinos, but we get caught up in supporting them. We get caught up in supporting Asian Americans. We get caught up in supporting indigenous people. None of these folks support us though. When they have their when they do their civil rights stuff, they rightfully so, by the way, they rightfully look out for their group, and they should, as we should. And as far as I've seen, Trump's policies while in office did not hurt black people. So what people will evoke because he's never done anything while in office to be bad was they'll either talk about the Central Park Five, and that came up in the news as well this week that now the guys from the Central Park Five are suing Trump for the ad he took out 20 plus years ago in as a as an ad in the New York Times saying that he thought that they should receive the death penalty. Again, black people, especially on the left, try to make a big deal of that, but people forget that when he ran that ad, they had already been convicted and sentenced. They had been convicted and sentenced at the time when he ran that ad. On top of that, the irony was he was a registered Democrat. And and the white woman who was the prosecutor who got them convicted, she was a Democrat. You know what I'm saying? And then the other thing they'll bring up is that he had he had a lawsuit against him because of discrimination against black tenants in his on his property. But you know what? We don't know all the facts about that because guess what? I don't want bad tenants in my in my property either. I don't care what race they are. If I have bad tenants, I want them out too. Not not to mention also a, 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 a not so hidden fact about real estate moguls in New York is they pretty much all kind of agree with Trump on a lot of the ways he ran his business. If you talk, if you have the ability to talk to other real estate moguls from the New York tri-state area, most of them don't disagree with the way Trump ran his ran his company or the decisions he made. But guess what? To counterbalance that stuff, do people know that in 1990, when Nelson Mandela was released from prison, Trump had a private jet chartered to bring him to the USA? Do people know that? Do people remember when Jennifer Hudson's family lost their homes during, I think, Hurricane Katrina or whatever it was? Do you know he put up her whole family in his hotels for free? Do people know that? Do people know that in the 80s when Jesse Jackson ran for president, he supported Jesse Jackson's campaign and funded his funded his campaign? Do people know that? Do people remember all the times he was on like black TV shows and rap songs that black people used to love him back in the 80s and 90s before he said he brought up the whole birtherism issue of Obama back in the late 2000s, in the 2010s, 2012s, whenever. He was pretty much well liked by black people up until he spoke ill of Obama back in like 2014 or whatever, when he brought up the whole birtherism conspiracy. Before that, he was well liked amongst black people. He had been mentioned oodles of times by rappers. He has been in he had been in black TV shows like Fresh Prince of Bel Air, I think The Cosby Show, but now everyone says he's a racist and he's a fascist and he admires Hitler. Okay, but let's rewind. Remember, I said the difference between a liberal fox and the conservative redneck. Black people love Biden because he ran as VP for Obama. Do people realize Obama picked Biden specifically because he would appeal to white conservatives and moderates? That's why he picked him. Um, People forget that he didn't pick Biden because he was this huge supporter of black people's political issues. He picked him because he was someone who could reach out to middle America. That's why Obama picked Biden as his running mate. Let's look at Biden's record in office. Okay, so Biden is supposed to be so well liked by black people. His own VP, Kamala Harris, back in 2020 when they ran against each other, brought up the very salient fact that he supported um, segregation amongst in the public schools because he was against he was against busing black students to white schools. He prided himself in reaching across the, the aisles of Congress to work with Strom Thurmond, a well-known white supremacist. Strom Thurmond, the one who secretly had a black daughter. That guy. Yeah. Also, people don't remember that Joe Biden he uh, he co-wrote or wrote or he either co-wrote or was the majority writer for the 1988 crack bill. I don't think people remember that. The 1988 crack bill went into law where it made mandatory federal sentencing for crack and only crack, not for powder cocaine, not for any other controlled substance, only crack cocaine. Mandatory federal sentencing. Because you know why? Because crack cocaine was only in the black communities at the time. Then in 1994, he co authored the 1994 crime bill, which sent thousands of people, mostly black men, to prison for minor for minor crimes, for minor drug and drug offenses and minor violent crimes. And he and Clinton led this led this whole thing back in the 90s, calling young black men super predators. Super predators. So if you were a teenage black man or 20 or in your early 20s, they basically labeled you as a de facto criminal just by virtue of your race and gender. And again, while he's still in office, he eulogized Robert Byrd, a KKK leader. He eulogized him and called that man a mentor and a friend. But this is the guy that Democrats have said was the friend of black people because ran with Barack Hussein Obama, and black people started affectionately calling him Uncle Joe. But Uncle Joe worked with white supremacist leaders like Strom Thurmond and KKK leaders like Robert Byrd, authored bills that destroyed the black community, like the 1988 crack bill and the 1994 crime bill, and tried to stop black kids from being integrated into white schools. But this 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 guy is not the racist. Trump is the racist. Meanwhile, guess what Trump did when Trump was in office? He did prison reform. He got that black lady out of prison who had been wrongfully detained for defending herself against someone who essayed her, and she ended well she unalived someone who essayed her and attacked her, and she was put into prison for that. He got her out of prison for that. He got a lot. He even, again, to his credit, like, this is why rappers like him. He helped a lot of rappers out of serious legal troubles. When ASAP Rocky was going to get locked up in the Netherlands for the bullshit he was doing, he got him back home. Uh, I think he even intervened with Meek Mills. I'm not sure, but with Lil Wayne, he gave him a presidential pardon. Also, he gave permanent funding to HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities. He Obama never did that shit. He was the first so-called black president, but he didn't do that. The the so-called racists gave permanent funding to historically black colleges and universities. What's up, Eric? I'm sorry I didn't acknowledge you, my man. Um, um, but yeah, Eric was like, he said, "Damn, facts, no." He said, "Wow, really? Yes, I know that one." I'm just going over the stuff he was saying. He said, "True." Hundo says, "Have you seen Stormy Daniels' interview on Vlad TV?" I haven't seen her interview on Vlad TV, Hundo, but I remember her interview on Bill Maher back about how many years ago? This was like 6, 7 years ago. Back then, she said on the Bill Maher show, and Bill Maher hates Donald Trump, by the way, but even he pointed this out last year. during the case with Stormy in New York City against Trump. He said she came onto my show and did an interview and said that the sex between them was consensual and that that there was nothing bad that happened with him. But when she was on, but when she was in court last year, she lied and said he forced himself on her and all this and that. You are a porn star. You were getting paid for this. You even signed a freaking NDA, but all of a sudden now he forced himself upon you. This is why no one. This is why people don't take the Me Too movement seriously. Not to mention that people forget because people want to always call Trump a rapist. Because again, anything bad you can call that man to devalue him amongst the electorate, they will. So now they're calling him an admirer of Hitler, and then they're also calling him a rapist. And yes, I have to say it that way because otherwise, the the algorithm here will will strike me. So I have to say it that way. But um, so I'm saying it with a G, but I'm sure you guys get it. But anyway, um, people forget there was also a credible woman who came out against Biden and said he essayed her too. And guess what the Me Too movement people said? They literally said that while they don't want to invalidate this woman's experiences, that because Biden is on their team, that they're not going to pursue this against them because he's part of our team and we need him to win. So the Me Too movement isn't shit. And it never has been, to be honest, because you should never believe someone just by virtue of their gender, and you should never disbelieve someone just on the virtue of their gender. That's fucking ridiculous. That's patently ridiculous. Like it. This shows why I keep saying that logic should be taught in public education. Um, but Eric was saying, yeah, man, I never heard of 3/4 of this, but the 1/4 was pretty bad anyway. He said, "You're good." I appreciate it, man. I just pay attention to stuff. That's all. I'm very good at rote memory. Hundo says she talks about her encounter with Trump. Yeah, so I don't know what she said on Vlad TV, Hundo, but like I said, I remember the interview she did on Bill Maher. On Bill Maher, she said it was consensual, and she and Bill Maher were even joking back and forth because Bill was like, "Ugh, how could you fuck that guy, raw dog?" She was like, I mean, she said she did it just like she would do it like in her movies, like she's like, just like in her movies, she could just turn that off and do what she do. I mean, that's porn stars. People forget at the end of the day, porn stars are prostitutes. They're just prostitutes that get videoed. If you turn on the video, they're no longer they're no longer a hooker. They're a porn star. That's the only difference. Porn stars, strippers, prostitutes, bottle girls, bar girls, they're all sex workers. They're all sex workers. The moment you receive money for any sort of sexual activity, you are a sex worker. She is a sex worker. So that's not to say that she would deserve to get SA'd. That's not what I'm saying. Please don't take me as saying that because I don't want someone to clip this and say he's saying that. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is during that interview with Bill Maher, she said that, she wasn't personally disgusted with having sex with Donald Trump because she saw it as just like performing performing what she does when she works in in porn. She, she does sexual acts for money, and she was getting paid to do this with Trump. So big deal. And again, like I said, Trump was well liked. within the black community before 2014, before he again brought up the birtherism issue against Obama. And again, he's given money to both Democrats and Republicans. And again, back when that Central Park 5 thing happened, he was a registered Democrat. He used to be a Democrat, guys. So I think you guys need to remember that. He used to be a Democrat. He was not a lifelong Republican. I've switched my parties several times. So has he. So have a lot of people. When I first uh, registered to vote, when I think I was 18, I registered as a Republican. The reason was that my father was a Republican. So at the time, I thought my father was politically savvy, so I wanted to be like him. That's changed a lot, but that's a topic for another day. And it wasn't until I was like 21 and 22 that I changed that. After Al Gore lost, and they blamed Ralph Nader for his loss instead of blaming Al Gore for not performing better, I switched to the Green Party. I became a registered Green Party member, and I backed Ralph Nader. Like I was for him. I liked Ralph Nader. Um, then I switched to Democrat because I figured that a Green Party candidate will never win in a major election. They might win on local. There are some Green Party candidates who've won in local elections across the country, but they've never won on a congressional level. Like I mean, on the Senate level, and definitely not the presidential level. So I switched to Democrat because I saw myself as a progressive Democrat. But even when I was a Republican, I wasn't conservative. I was a liberal Republican. And if you think that's contradictory, just know that back in the late 90s, there were liberal Republicans. These were people who were socially liberal but fiscally conservative. And when I say fiscally, I mean that with an F, not a PH. Fiscally referring to financially, like, you know, keep your hands out of my pockets, but hey, do whatever you want to do. Socially liberal, but fiscally conservative. That was what most liberal Republicans are. There aren't any liberal Republicans anymore. The two parties have become too hyper partisan. What used to be liberal Republicans now are probably moderates, either moderate Republicans or independents now. John Doe says, "What's up, bro? What's going on?" Um, but yeah, guys, like I said, see through the smoke. They're all these people are attacking Trump now, calling him racist, calling him a Nazi, saying he admires Hitler. This was the funny thing is, even if he did say that, even if he said he even if he said he admired the fact that Hitler's army was so loyal to him, that doesn't mean he admires Hitler himself. We need to do nuance. So, like I said, I'm not even going to support the claim that he actually said that because I really don't know. That would be something to look into through Snopes.com because Snopes is really one of the very few platforms I trust in disentangling political misinformation because PolitiFacts can't be trusted. I don't trust PolitiFacts, but I will trust Snopes.com. Um, but again, even if he said he admires the fact that his army was so loyal to him, again, that doesn't mean he admired Hitler himself. Also, I want to bring in this historical tidbit that not everyone in Hitler's army was as loyal to him as people might think. There were several instances where his military tried to oust him. I mean, there was literally a movie on this when Tom Cruise played. I mean, some of you may remember the movie. forgot the name of the movie, but Tom Cruise plays the protagonist in this movie, where he's one of these Nazi leaders who who with other Nazis tried to overthrow Hitler. And during the Third Reich, this happened several times where he where some of his underlings tried to overthrow him. So people saying, "Oh, he just wants a military that's completely obedient to him and not to the Constitution." Again, that doesn't even make sense. As a veteran, yes, we swear an oath to the Constitution, not to the president. But the president is the president is literally the commander in chief of the military. He is literally the commander in chief of the military. He is literally the commander in chief of the military. Back during the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln himself was actually doing military strategizing for the Union Army. I don't, this is why history is so important. This is why being a history nerd is so important. Yes, our presidents, although they usually, almost all of them have usually um, given that direct um, chain of command to their military leaders, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, right? And from the Joint Chiefs of Staff on to the generals and admirals, the president still is the commander in chief, and he can directly lead the military. Like I said, Abraham Lincoln literally did this during the Civil War. He was actually doing military strategizing himself with his generals. But to say that this man admires Hitler because he allegedly said that he admired the fact that the Nazi army was loyal to him is this is just goofy. And again, they have to make these comparisons to being a Nazi supporter because they're running out of things to say against him. And they're seeing their poll, and Kamala is seeing her poll number slip. So that's when they start sliding. That's when they evoke Godwin's law. Again, Godwin's law, to repeat to people who didn't hear this, Godwin's law is the is is the observation on on the internet that the longer a debate goes on the internet, the more the more likely that someone's going to evoke Nazis or Hitler against the other person with whom they disagree. And I said the Democrats have been running this playbook for the last 25 years because they started this with George W. Bush claiming he was a, a Nazi admirer and supporter. They said it back in both like 2000 and 2004. They even tried to smear Mitt Romney at the time when he ran against Obama. The only one I the only Republican candidate I don't remember them trying to smear as being a Nazi was John McCain. They like John McCain because again he's a war hero and he and his in his election, well, in his campaign run against Obama, they were pretty civil against each other, with the exception of their super PACs. The super PACs went hard against both of them. Like many people remember the Swift boat attacks against McCain, where they basically tried to challenge his military credibility. But um, again, it's very misleading, very disingenuous. And again, I'm gonna keep repeating saying similar things over again because I want the it's sometimes you need to over communicate ideas so that people get them. At the end of the day, both Democrats and Republicans form a political oligarchy because they may drive their constituents against each other, where people who are card carrying Democrats and people who are card carrying Republicans hate each other and can't live alongside each other and make everything toxic online or even in real life. But these candidates and these political leaders, at the end of the day, they form an oligarchy. They all went to the same elite universities. They all attend the same events. They all live in the same communities, and they all send their kids to the same schools. So just remember that. Um, John Doe says, "You think the McDonald's outbreak was to hurt Trump?" Uh, I don't know. With the it was like E. coli, right? Um, Probably because, well, I won't say the legacy. Look, the legacy media. That it wasn't a. I'll say this. I don't think it was a coincidence that they tried to smear McDonald's at the same time that you know Trump did that little McDonald's stunt in Pennsylvania. At the end of the day, it worked because one, it trolled Kamala perfectly because we know she lied about working at McDonald's. That bitch never worked at McDonald's, just like she isn't black. I'm black. I'm foundational black American. I can trace my ancestry to people who came to this country in bondage in this uh, back in the 1700s and 1800s. Uh, she can't. Her mother is East Indian. Her father is multiracial. He may have some black ancestry. I won't deny that. But she lied. Like she lied. Like sh Candace Owens caught her her lying when she looked at the documentation on her grandmother. On her father's side, her grandmother on her father's side is a was a white Irish woman, but she ran pictures of a black woman being her grandmother, who was actually the servant of the family. So I don't trust that bitch. And people say, well, she went to an HBCU and she became a Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority member. So what? There are a lot of white and Asian people who attend HBCUs. Guess why? Because when they go there, they're the minority. And before the Supreme Court ended affirmative action in college admissions, non-black people were receiving these preferential treatment programs when they went to non-white schools. I dated a Thai girl who was going to Morgan State University in Baltimore. Morgan State is a historically black college. She was Thai. Meanwhile, I was at the flagship campus, University of Maryland, which is a predominantly white school. And ev- anyone who's been a part of the Pan Hellenic um, Council, the PHC, which is the umbrella organization for all the Black Greek lettered organizations, know that in every like black sorority, there's a non-black girl in them, especially the AKAs. They are well known, so much so like there was a there used to be a given a running stereotype that you couldn't join the AKAs unless you were biracial or light skinned. Every Anyone who knows black fraternities and sororities know that most of the alpha men were light skinned and most of the alpha sorority girls were light skinned or biracial, or some of them weren't even black. I have a Korean homeboy uh, from from my college. He joined Alpha Phi Alpha. He was an Alpha Phi Alpha member. He was Korean. He was Alpha Phi Alpha, and he was Korean. The AKAs, they had um some white and Latina girls in their memberships. Even the Deltas were known for being the dark skinned girls. There was a white girl in the Deltas. There was a white girl in the Deltas, and the Deltas were known for being the chocolate girls. So to say, oh, she went to a historically black college and university and she joined the AKAs does not make her black. Even being Jamaican doesn't make her black. Anyone who knows people from the West Indies and the Caribbean, which I do, I grew up in the Northeast. Well, aside from living in Illinois for like almost 6 years, um, on the East Coast, I've always lived around West Indian people. Like when I was little, like my nanny was Jamaican, so I've been around West Indian people since I was literally a baby. And just because you identify as Jamaican does not mean you're black. It does not mean you're black just because you're Jamaican or you're Trini or you're Bahamanian. You're from the Virgin Islands. You're from St. Kitts and Nevis. You're from um, Dominica. And I can go on and on. I'm not gonna name every fucking Caribbean island. But the point is, just because you're from the islands doesn't mean you're black. Is there are the majority of people from the islands black? Yes. Guess who's guess who's from the islands and isn't black? Kelsey Grammer. You know Kramer. You guys remember Kramer? Or he also plays does the voice of Sideshow Bob. Kelsey Grammer, that guy. He's from the islands. He's not black. So again, just because her father is from Jamaica does not mean he's black. Is he brown skinned? Yes. So is her mother, who's Indian, but her mother comes from the south of India, where they are more brown skinned, but they are still considered Caucasian. Um, John Doe says she has pics with Diddy. That's all we need. Who doesn't have pics? Well, I can't hold that. I, I'll I'll be fair. I mean, I'm not going to evoke. I believe in evoking the fairness maximum. The fairness maximum is don't you know don't attack someone for a particular thing that is something that is can be generally said about many or most people. So I'm gonna invoke the fairness maximum with the whole Diddy thing. If she's taken, who hasn't taken pictures with him over his career? He's had a career expanded in the last 34 years, and he's a billionaire. So I'm pretty sure most people have had who are in the public sector have have probably you know met Puffy at one point. Donald Trump has met Puffy. He said, when he did The Apprentice that he considered Diddy a good person, a good friend, or whatever. But again, remember, like I said, that's because people in the black community used to like Donald Trump a lot until 2014 when he brought up the birther conspiracy. Until 2014 when he brought up this birther conspiracy, he was well liked within the black community. A lot of black people used to watch The Apprentice. So John Doe says it depends if the pic is in the sun or night. Hers is in the night. I can't speak on that. It really doesn't matter. Honestly, it really doesn't matter what time it was taken. Unless it's a picture of her getting her back blown out at a freak off, it doesn't matter. I mean, we have more insidious things that she's done. Like she had an affair with a married man in California back in the day by the name of Willie Brown. That's something to if you're gonna question her morality, that would be something to bring up is the fact that she had an affair with a married man at the time, Willie Brown. That's what we bring up, or we would bring up her as a an attorney general and as a district attorney in the Oakland, San Francisco Bay Area, where she kept black men locked up in prison beyond their sentences. She had to be court. She had to be ordered by a judge to release those men out of prison. She kept them in. Again, that is fucking evil. She kept those men in prison longer than their sentence. That's fucked up. And for all these black women defending her, she locked up black women for truancy laws if their kids didn't go to weren't attending school. In one case, in one particular case, the kid wasn't in school because they were suffering from sickle cell anemia. And this is why the kid wasn't in school because they were hospitalized for sickle cell anemia and still locked up that woman, a black woman, for truancy for her child not attending school when the kid was hospitalized for sickle cell anemia, which a black person would, an actual black person would have sympathy for because sickle cell anemia is known as a particular genetic disorder within black African people. But because she's not really fucking black, she had no sympathy. Also, she locked up people for weed offenses, but then laughed and said that she smoked weed herself on an interview on the Breakfast Club with Charlemagne the God. And then even lied and said that Tupac was her favorite rapper and that she listened to Tupac when she was in college. That's a lie. You know how it's a lie? The bitch was in college back in the 80s. Tupac didn't come out in the 80s. He came out in the 90s. I remember because I remember when he came out, he was originally a roadie for Digital Underground that came out in 1990. The rap group Digital Underground, with the Humpty Hump. He started off with Digital Underground before he went solo in the early 90s. So this bitch saying that Tupac was her favorite rapper in college is a fucking lie because she went to college in the 80s. John Doe says she can't be trusted. No, she can't. But everyone wants to talk about Trump lying. Again, and I'm going to again evoke the fairness maximum, the fairness maxim here. All politicians lie. All politicians lie. All politicians lie. John Doe says that's why the USA doesn't need women presidents, at least right now. These women need more morals. No, it's not that we don't need women presidents. We just need the right one. This is the reason why a lot of women secretly didn't vote for Hillary back in 2016. It wasn't that they weren't ready for a woman president. They just didn't want that particular woman as president because they didn't trust her. Her her family's reputation has been sullied by her husband pretty badly back in the late 90s. And the fact that she stuck with him as a good wife would do made people assume that she herself wasn't to be trusted if she stayed with a man consent who was seen by many people as being duplicitous himself. But I think we can have a female president. I won't go so hard like Just Pearly Things, like Pearl from Just Pearly Things, or H. Pearl Davis, whatever you want to call her. And I'm not doxing her. She uses her real name on, Twitter and all that stuff. But anyway, um, she said she wouldn't vote for a woman because women don't understand the role of violence, which is something this is an issue right now where when we're involved in these proxy wars across the globe. I get that. I do get that. But um I but I won't say that a woman president wouldn't understand the finer details of global conflict, because I remember people like Margaret Thatcher back in the 80s, who was the UK prime minister. I mean, had she might as well have had balls herself. She was a pretty tough gal. And I think Hillary fancied herself more of a liberal version of Margaret Thatcher. I know she definitely allied herself with Henry Kissinger, and I think Henry Kissinger is an asshole. Like she said, she like vocally gave admiration to Henry Kissinger, who's pretty much a war criminal and never deserved a fucking Nobel Peace Prize. But that's getting off topic. Getting back on the topic, guys. Again, I'm just gonna say we have a political oligarchy composed of both Democrats and Republicans, and even though they use the legacy media to drive a wedge between the country, and they stoke the very hyper partisanship that they claim to be against, they all form one community, because at the end of the day, even if they disagree with each other's views and may not even personally like each other, they all went to the same elite universities, they all attend the same events, they all live in the same communities, and they all send their kids to the same schools. And I'm not joking. John Kerry and George Bush, like they act like these people were like mortal enemies. These two both went to Yale University at the same time. They both were part of the Skull and Bones Society, which is a secret society only for Yale students, and it's only for Yale students who show promise to be political, like powerful corporate or political leaders in their future. And they usually have some sort of um, elite lineage, and both did. Even so, they had the same GPA because everyone tried to keep everyone tried to attack Bush for being stupid and saw Kerry as the more erudite of the candidates, but they both had the same GPA at Yale. Meanwhile, people assumed George Bush was stupid, but after he graduated from Yale, he went on to get an MBA at Harvard. And he later said his that a lot of him seeming very inarticulate in public was actually done deliberately, because he realized by dumbing himself down, he could more be he could be seen as more approachable by the average person. He even said his so-called Bushisms, like all those little people remember his inarticulate speech. Same way they attacking Trump for being inarticulate or whatever. Bush said he did that intentionally. Probably not all the times. Everyone has like verbal tics, but he said a lot of the times when he spoke in a more folksy sort of way, he was doing it on purpose because he realized it would um, ingratiate himself with the average person. Trump has actually said the same thing as well. He said this in an interview that sometime that he said that he'll act often he won't prepare what he's going to say ahead of time when he does interviews, and he won't use a teleprompter because he figures if he just ad libs what he's going to say, that it will come off more natural and less less he will sound more less elitist if he just ad libs what he's going to say. um, which makes sense. This is why if people watch my videos, not my live streams, but my long form videos, I always ad lib those videos. I don't prepare what I'm going to say before I come on, before I do those videos. I want it to be natural. That's my natural thoughts. Because with my training and philosophy, I can chew and walk. I can walk and chew bubblegum at the same time. I can make an argument. I can evaluate arguments without without preparing formally for it. And it's, if you can do so, it shows more of a skill in practical reasoning. Like it's easy to do formal reasoning because you can prep, you can study for it, you can prepare it. Practical reasoning, you're doing off the cuff. Some are better than others. But when people attack these guys' intelligence, and they always want to attack Republican candidates' intelligence again, even though they go to the same elite universities as the liberal candidates. Most of these guys went to the same elite universities. They go to the same elite universities, guys. Bush and Kerry went to Yale. Both had the same GPA. Both were members of Skull and Bone Society. But Kerry was seen as the smart one and Bush as the dumb one, even though they had the same GPA at the same university at the same time. the, I know people are like, why are you belaboring the point? I want to over communicate these ideas on purpose because sometimes you have to over communicate ideas to get them across to people. And again, I don't believe Trump admires Hitler. Hillary used that same lie back in 2016. And the point I was going to make earlier, and I almost forgot, was do you know how many people have evoked admiration of how Hitler commanded a following of people? There have been people, both on the left and the right, who may have vehemently disagreed with Hitler and everything he stood for, but can admire the fact that people followed him because of because of because of his not just as being an authoritarian, but because of his charisma, and because there's a history in science of certain leaders, of how certain leaders can can get people to to follow them. And I don't want this to get clipped where people are saying, "Oh, so you admire him too?" No, I don't. First of all, I have Dutch Jewish ancestry myself, allegedly. I know some of my ancestry is definitely Dutch, I don't know if it's Jewish, but according to my father's side of family, we have Dutch Jewish ancestry. I might have to pay for a service to find that out or not. Whatever. In any case, not admire Hitler, but there have been people who have read his book Mein Kampf just to know more about how the man thought, because people want to know how could someone stoke such obeisance amongst people. People forget not the rapper Nas. Yes, the rapper Nas once said that you have to admire Hitler for the ability to have people follow him in such a way. I remember hearing this on a morning radio show long time ago on DC's 93.9 Kiss FM. Shout out to DC's uh, Kiss FM 93.9 WKYS. I'm not getting paid to say that. I used to like the morning show back then with I forgot, it's this big light skinned dude. He used to be really funny, and they were talking about it, and he was like, "Yeah, well, Nas." He's like, "Well," he said when Nas said, "You know, we don't have to like Hitler, but we can certainly admire the fact that he got these, he was able to get all these people behind him." And I remember the morning the morning radio show host was like, "No, we don't. No, we don't." And I was like, "Yeah, we certainly don't." But the funny thing is, no one would go back. No one would go back, like 16 years ago, to evoke the fact that Nas said that we should admire Hitler for the fact that he was able to get all these people behind him because he's on the right political side. Or even if, well, he hasn't spoken in support of Trump. But I bet you if Nas had spoken in favor of Trump, like publicly, I bet you they would have found that old interview of him speaking about Hitler, saying that we can admire the we can admire the fact that he got all these people behind him. And all of the things we have said and throughout our adulthood, and nowadays with the internet, even in your childhood, people can find anything to use that against you at a given time if they can find it. It's simply impossible to lead a life a life where you've never said or done anything that wouldn't be instantly regrettable had it had it been recorded so that people could bring it up later and use it against you. This is why I'm glad I'm Gen X and not a millennial and not Gen Z, because you millennials and Gen Z who are watching this live stream or watching it on replay, everything you guys do may be recorded. Whereas we were able, us Gen Zers, I mean, sorry, us Gen Xers and the older folks, the baby boomers, we got to live lives that weren't recorded. We got to do all of the debauchery when we were younger, and we don't have to pay for it now. Whereas you guys, you do anything debaucherous, you say anything that's politically incorrect, this can be used against you for the rest of your life. And my generation and the generations before me never have to worry about that, unless they did it while they were serving the public. If you are a public servant, which is, like I said, why we can bring up the stuff that Biden has done as a public servant, because again, who cares whether you're racist or not, so much so as have your policies been racist, and his policies have been racist. He supported, like I said, he was against busing black kids to white schools to integrate them. He worked with he worked with white supremacist Senator Strom Thurmond. He wrote the 1988 crack bill. He co-authored the 1994 crime bill. He eulogized a KKK leader, Robert Byrd. The campaign promises he made black people in 2020, he reneged on all that stuff. Um, People remembered that he was going to give student some sort of student loan forgiveness uh, to anyone who took out federal student loans. That was one thing, but the other thing is he specifically promised HBCU students that he was going to give them student loan forgiveness separately from the loan forgiveness he was going to do for anyone who took out a federal student loan. Completely forgot about that when we were asking about anti-black uh, racism hate crime bill. Nothing. And then when he was on the Breakfast Club with Charlemagne the God, had the nerve to say if you don't vote for him, you ain't black. What's up, Miss Needle? How's my sweet German friend? She's always same old, same old. Nobody gets up to the position without corruption. Can't trust any of them. Well, like I said, I don't know German politics, Miss Needle, but again, like I said here, all politicians lie. And again, we have a political oligarchy. So that's why I keep trying to tell people stop seeing people from the opposite political party as your enemy. They're not your enemy. Most Americans have more things in common than they have ap- apart from each other. If you set aside religion and politics, most Americans are very much alike in their wants, their needs, their experiences. We let political tribalism divide us, and the hyperpartisanship is stoked by legacy media, but these will be the same folks who will later say that politics is driving us apart when they're the very folks responsible for it, and they're doing it through the management of their news through political um through you know political fuckery or corporate fuckery. And I said the irony to that is that those same Democrats and Republican leaders who campaign against each other and make the electorate divided against each other, these people at the end of the day aren't actually enemies, or even if they dislike each other, again, they still went to the same schools, they still attend the same events, they still get money donated to them by the same people. Like Trump, when he used to donate money, he donated money both to Republicans and Democrats. They live in the same communities. Most of them live in the Washington Beltway, and they send their kids to the same expensive schools. So Miss Neal says it's every country, same bird, two wings. Good point. Good point. I, Maybe one day I'm gonna go into all the stuff going on in the Philippines. Only reason I don't want to do that is I don't want to I don't want to stoke any problems in the Philippines with me going back there. So there's so much shit going on in the Philippines. Maybe I'll bring on Mrs. Contrarian so she can talk about it. I've been trying to get her back on the video on live stream for a long time, but I keep having problems bringing her on, and I don't know if it's with my YouTube setting. Like I don't know if it's with YouTube or if there's some sort of firewall setting on the Philippines, because I haven't tried to bring on anyone from outside of the Philippines. Because I also had the other guest that I had on before. She wanted to return, and she couldn't because again, there's something preventing their video from working. I should try to see if you or someone else can do it, just to see if I can bring someone on a vertical live stream. Because if I can't bring you on, or if I can't bring someone on from the states, then I know that it's not a firewall in the Philippines. That it's my vertical live stream that's messing up. Miss Neal says if she don't, did they have an internet ban or something? He said if she don't get into trouble. Yeah, right. I wouldn't try to get her in trouble either because she has a pretty she has a a high, not a high profile job, but she works for a very well known financial institution. So I can't get her in trouble either. uh, she can try VPN, but the every time she came on, she wasn't using a VPN from what I remember. She just came right on. She wasn't using a VPN. But if she has to use a VPN to get on, that means there is some sort of firewall up. But that's why I say I want to try to bring someone on the channel who's not from the Philippines because I'm thinking it could be a Philippine issue, technical issue. I don't you that was when you were gone because there was a day when I couldn't bring her on. I was asking everyone in the chat room, "Hey guys, does anyone want to come live with me just so I can see if it works?" I was like, "You don't have to stay on or whatever. I just wanted to see if it could work." And at the time, the few people who were in the live stream weren't willing to come up, unfortunately. Um, Miss Nita says there's all sorts of things going on these days without these days wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if they changed the rules of the virtual. I mean, sorry, not virtual of the vertical streams, but like she would like when she came on and when the other girl came on, the screen was black, but I could hear them, and so then I went live, and it was the same thing. People just saw half of the screen all in black, and they could barely hear her. So I think it. So again, I don't know if that was a YouTube issue. Or, I don't know if it's a YouTube issue or if it's a firewall on the Philippine side of things. But maybe you and I can try it. No, not today because I haven't set it up. Because someone else was asking me, they was like, "Hey man, I'm willing to do it." And I was telling him that I would, but I have to set it up to. He's not a YouTuber, so he doesn't know that you, when we go live, we already have to hit the setting to allow guests to come on before we go live. If so, we can't. You can't go back in and change that setting. You just have to end that live stream and just start a new live stream. And I didn't want to start a new live stream because there was several people in the chat room at the time. But oh, hit me up on Instagram. I sent you a message, about the personal stuff. But yeah, guys, that's the end of my tirade. I just had to get it off my chest because I just find it so disingenuous that half of the country are really gonna believe that this man is a fascist. Now, does he like? Now, I'll say this to be fair. Does he like so-called strongman leaders? Yes, he does. But someone who's a real estate mogul, someone who's ran his own billion-dollar company, probably would be someone who would be infatuated with strong arm leaders because the way you run a business is much differently than the way you run a, a government. Like when you are a business leader, you basically are a dictator. When you are a CEO or chairman of a company, you basically run that business as you see fit. There's other than answering to the board, if there is a board, like you call your own shots. He came into the presidency as someone who's never been in politics, only someone who's run um, a multi-billion-dollar real estate um, empire. So so I don't know what to tell people. Like most of all our other presidents came into office as prior political leaders. Biden was a senator and a vice president before that. I mean, he was a vice president. Before that, he was a senator. Obama was a senator. Um, Bush was a governor. Um, Clinton. Talking about Bill, not Hillary. But Hillary herself was a U.S. senator and a first lady. And yes, first lady is a political position. But anyway, her husband Bill, he was governor before he became president of Arkansas. George H. Bush, George Herbert Bush, Bush Sr., he was a VP before he became president for Ronald Reagan. Before he was a VP, before he was vice president, he was the head of the CIA. Yes, George H. Bush, the father, was head of the CIA at one point before he became VP for Ronald Reagan. That's political power. um, and so on and so on. Like, matter of fact, up until like the last up until Bill Clinton, as a matter of fact, I believe every president had military experience up until Bill Clinton. So that was another thing. There was like a de facto requirement, but wasn't like something that was on the books. Was that presidential most presidents had been, veterans. So things change. And most of them had gone to Ivy League schools. Like that changed with Biden. He didn't go to an Ivy League school, I don't think. But most of them have. And the funny thing is, the same people who the same people who call out elitism expect elitism in their leaders, which is very hypocritical. But that's a subject for another day. I'm about to call it, guys. It's late. It's two oh shit, it's 2:05 a.m. I need to go to bed, and I need Miss Needle, I need to hit you up. So please hit me up on Instagram if you're still on. Guys, if you have any other questions, you can give them to me now, not answer them. But if not, leave it in the comment section. People who watch this on replay, go ahead and drop comments to me as well. Feel free. Um, if you guys want to support me, please give me a like and a subscribe. That help. Trust me, that helps so much. Like honestly, yes, I love to get like financial support from you guys, like through the super chats, through the super stickers, through the super thanks. And again, for you guys watching on replay, you can drop me a super thanks during a replay. I can't get a super chat or a super sticker on a replay, but I can get a super thanks. You'll even see it across the screen. You'll see that you can drop me a super thanks, or you can send me a Cash App if you want. The link is in the description, or Venmo, or buy me a coffee like Miss Flutterby and other people have done for me. And trust me, I really do buy coffee. I will literally buy coffee. Um, or you can sign up for a membership that starts at $2.99. But if you do none of that, that's fine. Just give me a like and subscribe. Just expanding the people who subscribe would help me so tremendously. You guys don't even know. Like I think um so YouTube gives you there's different level, like I'm monetized and all that, but there's different levels of followers that you will get. Like you get a plaque when you reach, I think you get your first plaque when you reach 100,000 followers. Right now I'm trying to get to 10,000. Like you, I think you can consider yourself a serious content creator once you hit 10,000 subs. That doesn't even seem a lot, but on YouTube that is a lot, as opposed to like I think that's more easily done on TikTok and Instagram. But for YouTube to reach that numbers is saying a lot more because there's so much more competition for people's eyeballs on here. So I really, appreciate anyone who watches this because I remember just 2 years ago starting off this, I literally had like 5 subscribers. So I used to always, I used to always, if you watch any of my older videos from 2 years ago, even a year and about a year and a half, about a year ago, you will see me always saying, "Well, I only got 1 subscriber, guys." That was a running joke because I didn't know if I would ever get to this point of monetization. So just having the the almost 1,800 people who rock with me right now, I appreciate it a lot because I never saw myself getting to this far, and that's such a fraction of people. But even though it's only 1,800 people, I appreciate it a lot, seriously. But I'm trying to get to 10,000. Like once you get to 10,000, YouTube will start tweaking things so they will start sending more traffic your way. So, like I said, if you don't send me not near a dollar or a quarter or even a penny, just giving like and subscribe will help a lot. And then sharing the videos with other people who might also like and subscribe. That's what's up. But on that note, again, guys, whether you're watching this live or you watching this on replay, um, send me some comments if you agree, disagree, got questions, whatever. Okay. And those who wanted to see me talk about something else, just know that every week I do a Ask Me Anything live stream. I do that once a week, sometimes twice. But if you have other questions, you can ask me on that Ask Me Anything day, or you can always send it to me through a super chat. If you ask me through a super chat, I'll answer any question, any appropriate question. Or you can email me. My email is in the description as well. So with that, guys, I will go. Shout out to everyone who chatted with me. Appreciate it. But thanks.